welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we dig in deep to analyze the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. I'm Andy Nelson from thenextreel.com. We are at the beginning of the whole MCU train, and we are looking at Jon Favreau's 2008 film, Iron Man. Joining me today, we have Eric Deutsch from the Escape from New York Minute. Welcome.
Thank you. So excited to be on your show, Andy.
It's going to be a fun one. We've got a good week to talk about, some good set of minutes. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's a very Jeff Bridges heavy minute, week, I mean.
Yes, we like our Jeff Bridges over here. We are looking at minute 96 of Iron Man today. On today's show, the minute starts with Obadiah interrupting his secret engineers, and it ends with Tony checking his phone to see that Pepper is calling him. Technically, the minute starts with a few frames of the final scene when Jeff Bridges is kind of standing on the balcony, the platform in the building overlooking Pepper walking away with Agent Coulson. But I mean, it's hardly worth talking about because it's like just a couple of frames. We really kick it off with a shot of the engineers. We're back in the big arc reactor lab, I guess we're calling it, as Jeff Bridges comes storming through the door on the far side of the room and then just kind of beelines for the scientists standing up at the platform. And of course, we have the main focus of our attention with the scientists is on the phone, and kind of gets the hint from the other scientists that somebody's coming, gets off the phone quickly, and proceeds to have a conversation with Obadiah.
Yeah, it's just like an overall, before we even get into like the specifics of the scene, just as a whole, I mean, Jeff Bridges he's so good in this minute. He just commands the whole minute, the way he just storms in and clearly and calmly menaces everybody and then explodes. It's just a great acting minute for him.
It's so fun watching everything that's going on with him in this minute, because you're right. He's got this burning subterfuge inside of him as he's just kind of storming across. I mean, he clearly has an intention right now, and he's going to figure out what the heck is taking these scientists so long. Even the way he like flings open the little, that little gate that the kind of, I don't know what you call those little like half gate thing that just kind of keeps people from getting too close to the arc reactor. He's great. It's very very much the antagonist side of Jeff Bridges that I always enjoy watching.
Yeah, absolutely.
He jumps up onto the platform and starts talking to our head, I guess we'll call him, the head secret scientist. This is, of course, Peter Billingsley. And we love good old Peter Billingsley. It's great to see him pop up in here. Were you a fan of Peter Billingsley as a kid?
Peter Billingsley, the guy from A Christmas Story?
Yeah, that's him.
That's Peter. Okay, so I did not look into the actor in this scene, and you're completely blowing my mind right now that that's Peter Billingsley.
What's great is he's buddies with Jon Favreau.
Okay,
and I think that he produced Made with Favreau, and ended up directing Couples Retreat that Favreau and Vince Vaughn were in together. And so, yeah, he's just kind of been in these circles, and he actually is on this film, not just as this actor. The character that he's playing here is William Ginter Riva. I'm not sure where they came up with that name, but that's his name. But then he's also an executive producer on the film. And
wow. Yes. In answer to your question, yes, I was a big fan of his as a kid. I mean, I'm a child of the 80s. I watched A Christmas Story incessantly as a kid.
and probably still every Christmas. It's still on in my house every Christmas.
Sure, yeah.
It's so funny to see him pop up in this. Oh, and he was in Elf also. He was one of the elves that was in charge of the toys when Buddy the elf keeps breaking things.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's definitely kind of deep in the Favreau circles. They're buddies, which is great. We do. I don't know if you've heard on some past episodes, but I do this little IMDb game with our guests. Are you familiar with it? Are you feeling like you could do it with Peter Billingsley?
Yes. Oh yeah. I'm a loyal listener of the show. Absolutely. I know the game. Yep.
If you had to guess, what 4 films would IMDb have as the films that it says Peter Billingsley is known for?
Well, if A Christmas Story isn't one of the 4, then their algorithm is really messed up.
Right? Wouldn't that be a mess?
I would imagine his role's not big enough for this movie to be counted. I don't really know how the IMDb algorithm works, but his role seems way too small for that to show up. Although the movie itself is huge.
Right.
I mean, Elf makes sense, although I haven't seen that movie in so long. I don't know how big his role was in that either to know if that hits. Gee, what other movie would I have even seen him? I'm not sure I can name a fourth
movie. Dirt Bike Kid?
Which one?
Ever see that? The Dirt Bike Kid?
No, I missed that one.
That was the other one that I watched all the time with him when I was a kid. That came out a couple years after Christmas Story. But that is not one of his. And actually, it's not just what they're known for as far as acting. So Iron Man is, in fact, one of the films that's on here. And I think largely it is because of his producing side of that. And actually, if you look at the other three, other than A Christmas Story, which is, of course, his number one, which it should be, the others are all for his producing work. So you've got Iron Man up there. You have Four Christmases, another one with Vince Vaughn. And then The Sacred Fire, which is something I am completely unfamiliar with. It's from 1994. He produced that, and it's a short film that he produced in 1994. A young man who appears to be a bum is approached by a young woman who recognizes him from high school. After she buys him lunch, he claims to be a hunter of psychic vampires that steal our vitality, our sacred fire, while having the appearance of drunken bums. He believes her fire to be particularly strong, making her highly at risk.
Yeah, now that you revealed the full four, so I felt I could now look at IMDb without ruining the game. I haven't even heard of any other the stuff that he's been in his career, to be honest. Other than, guest appearances on TV shows, but not that I would remember his specific episodes, though.
Yeah, his career, it's not one that I think largely once he kind of started producing, like he'll do bit parts and stuff, but he's not doing anything where it's full roles. Because I think even in Four Christmases, he's only billed as a ticket agent. The Breakup as Andrew, I don't know how big of a role that was, and Ming Ming the Elf in Elf. But I don't think that he's doing big stuff. I think largely he's focusing on the producing side of things. But yes, that is William Ginter Riva, who is the head scientist here. Good old Peter Billingsley. I'm guessing that the last name was a nod to the production designer, J. Michael Riva, or perhaps the assistant art director, Wendy Riva. I'm assuming that she is related to J. Michael Riva. But I don't know where the Ginter came from. I don't know where they came up with this name. It's not anything that's like, I looked through the Marvel Wikia to see if this was a name that popped up anywhere, and only in relation to this. So I think it's just a quirky name that they decided to go with. Yeah,
I think that a character with only in a couple of scenes getting three names, basically. They include the middle name. That has to be some kind of inside joke.
Yes, right. I'm assuming so. And then we have 6 background actors in here working as the just the other scientists. I love how when they see Obadiah storming in, they all conveniently pair up and disappear.
Oh, it's great. I love it. Nobody has William's back. They all immediately turn around and walk away. I love it.
Oh, it was so funny.
Yes.
I don't know if I've ever noticed that before when watching it so many times for this to prepare for this episode. But watching them, I kept chuckling at it because they just so perfectly okay, we're going to go this way. You guys go that way. Just kind of all disappear so nicely. It is fantastic.
Yeah, I think I didn't notice it till I was watching the minute the second time when I was taking my notes for this. And so it was this, oh, wait, whoa. Are they doing what, I think they're doing? And, so then I went back, watched that small section again. I was like, oh, this is just great. That just all up. Oh, okay. He's here. See you later. Bye. And so I'm sure after Obadiah leaves, thanks a lot, guys.
Right. Exactly. Way to have my back.
But even before that, so, William's on the phone and he's talking to somebody, but we're doing our best here. He's obviously not talking to Obadiah because Obadiah is storming in. We know he's not talking to Tony because Tony doesn't know about the secret project. So I'm just wondering who William would have been talking to. This project is a secret. Obadiah obviously didn't want anybody knowing about this except probably the people in the room. So I'm just wondering who William is talking to there.
That's a good question. And my best guess would be because this is not Sector 16, which is as we learned when Pepper's looking through the files and discovers Sector 16 is all of the stuff involving the development of the Ironmonger suit. This is the big arc reactor room. And as we will learn later in the film, when they actually go into Sector 16 is actually through that yellow door where Obadiah comes through, and it's downstairs under this room. That's where all the development is. So my best guess is perhaps he's talking to some of the tech people down there as they are trying to, because I think they're building the suit downstairs, and these guys are up here trying to figure out how they can harness this arc reactor power to shrink it into something that's chest-sized.
That makes sense.
But it's again, it's a wild speculation on my part. To me, it also feels like actor busy work. I'll just be on the phone. It'll be great. It'll be great. And it's a scene that ends in kind of an interesting way, because I don't know. I love the way that we've already talked about this fantastic explosion that Jeff Bridges has as Obadiah when he's talking to William, and everybody kind of disappears. He's so focused in his frustration and anger, and the way that he wraps his arm around him and everything. I love the way he flips his tie. Purely accidental, I'm sure.
I made the same note.
It is one heck of a gesture that he does. And I love that he gets so pushy with William that William like leans backward, almost like backward over this bar while Obadiah like leans right into him. It's a great moment. Yeah,
the two notes I had for that physical acting, I made the same exact note about the tie that I can't imagine that was planned, and I love that they left it in.
Right.
And that Peter Billingsley must have gotten some of Jeff Bridges' spittle in his face during that scene. They're so close, and he's just so emoting and angry. There must have been a little bit of a spray.
Yeah, right. Yes, I think that's one of those actor tricks that you end up. What movie was it? There was some movie where it was kind of almost spoofing the actors and the amount of spit that they expel when they're actually acting, and how excessive it can be sometimes. But this does seem like it would be one of those moments.
And just the way that Bridges delivers the line when in a cave, and then there's that pause with a box of scraps. I love that there's that pause. I love the way that he phrases it. I really like that line particularly.
It is. It's really nice the way he breaks that up. I agree. And I think it's interesting. We have William. After Obadiah has his explosion, William says, "Well, I'm sorry, I'm not Tony Stark." And what's interesting is, and I don't know if it's intentional, but I do find it interesting. This is actually the second person in the film to actually say this. The first person being Obadiah, and this was actually way back in the award ceremony earlier in the film, when he comes up on stage and accepting the award on behalf of Tony, because of course Tony, because he's gambling, did not show up to the award ceremony. And he says, "I'm not Tony Stark." And again, I don't know if it was just an intentional callback to that, or some other random thing, or just conveniently or happenstance, really. But I did find it interesting that just one of those weird lines that kind of ended up repeating.
As you mentioned that, there's an interesting. This is just popping in my head now that part of the issue with the character conflict between Obadiah and Tony is Obadiah founded the company with Tony's father, or ran the company with Tony's father, and then after Tony's father died, Obadiah sort of had to be a placeholder until Tony turned 21, and then Tony takes over. And you could almost look at it as Obadiah having a resentment of, I should be in charge of this company, but I'm not Tony Stark, so I can't be in charge of this company. Because William saying, "I'm sorry, I'm not Tony Stark," it actually diffuses the scene. It stops Obadiah in his tracks. Obadiah cannot quibble or argue with the fact that this guy is not Tony Stark. He cannot do what Tony Stark does. And in addition, Obadiah is not Tony Stark and cannot do what Tony Stark does. William has found his out of getting out of this tight situation inadvertently.
It's brilliant the way that it works, and it's the nugget that Obadiah needed to figure out what his next steps were. which we're going to find out very shortly here,
Yes.
right? But before we head to the next scene, there was I don't know if it's fair to call it a deleted scene. It certainly was deleted, but it feels like it's more an extended version of this scene, and in kind of a different place, almost like they decided to do some rewrites and stuff. The scene in question is actually with Obadiah going down into the basement, which is the sublevel of Sector 16. Under the arc reactor. And in that deleted scene, we can see them building the Ironmonger suit. We see the Mark I suit there as well. I also love this line that William delivers. If I can collaborate with the Total Fusion Group, which sounds like total actor science gobbledygook. It's an interesting scene, though. And boy, does it allow Obadiah to monologue. There's just a massive monologue that he has here about the stake of civilization as we know it.
Yeah, a bit over the top in this deleted scene. A lot of megalomania. He's trying to rally his troops, and there's a lot of use of the words of our and we, sort of trying to bring these scientists into his worldview. And interestingly, the name Tony Stark is never mentioned, though, in this speech he makes.
No, it's not. It's all about the company and the vision and the future and the world order. And, basically it's like this rallying cry that, what's at stake here is, we are going to save civilization is really kind of what he's saying. And it's so interesting because he's really the guy who's not going to be doing that. And I'm like, this is a really good example of the bad guy selling these people on all of his lies. And I wonder, I'm like, does he know he's lying as much as he is? Or does he think he's weirdly helping by wanting to make these suits that he can sell and use to kind of control the world?
I think that in his worldview, I think that, and this is something that'll come up in one of the minutes later on this week, I think that he sees himself as somebody who is one of the few people that sees the world for what it is, and only he can be the person who can save the world. I think that's where the megalomania comes from. I think he genuinely believes what he's saying.
Well, and that is an interesting angle then with Obadiah, because if Obadiah really is that, where he thinks by making this super suit, basically, that he can control the world and fix everything. I mean, it is very much kind of an aspect of a supervillain, but in a weird way, it's also kind of a superhero angle. And I think that very much is a kind of callback to the whole who watches the Watchmen thing, because if he has this power and he's, quote, protecting the world order and, protecting civilization the way that we need it to be preserved, it is very much, whose perspective are you seeing that through before you realize, is he a good guy or a bad guy?
Yeah, there's that saying that I might not be getting 100% accurately, but something along the lines of, in the villain story, the villain is the hero in their own story. Yeah,
right, exactly. Well, he certainly is that in this one. The only other thing that I have about this deleted scene, and I don't know if it's perhaps a reason that they chose to not use it, unless it's just because the monologue was just a very monologue-y speech. But the other thing that I was wondering is, like, maybe it's because we do get to see the Ironmonger suit and they wanted to cut that out and keep that a little longer from being shown. That's the only other thing I could think of.
Yeah, I'm looking at that part of the scene right now to see how much they reveal. I mean, you don't see the helmet. I do like that the guys are welding and working while he's giving this big speech. It's like, yeah, I guess, those three guys don't have to pay attention. They have to keep working.
Right. They've got a timeline here.
Yeah. You see the chest plate, but the legs aren't attached. The helmet's not there. But I mean, I guess, it's pretty obvious what this is because of the big giant circle in the middle of the chest plate. It's clearly something that's attempting to replicate the Iron Man suit.
Right.
So yeah, I could see that being a thing of let's hold this back. Let's not even give a hint that this is what we're going to end up seeing.
Right. Because when we do get the reveal, and it's not this week, but we will be getting it soon. It's a nice reveal. It's nice the way that they kind of surprise us with that.
Yeah.
Other than the monologue, that's the big thing that I'm like, I could say it makes sense to me that they wouldn't want to show that. So we go from here to Tony's house. We end up leaving the scene after William says, "I am not Tony Stark," giving Obadiah kind of the seed of an idea is kind of what's planted here. We cut to Tony casually walking across his living room, listening. He hears the phone and he finds it under a fluffy pillow, picks it up and sees that Pepper is calling. This is the first time we've seen him since he sent Pepper on the mission to retrieve the shipping manifests from the computers at his office. And last time we saw him, he was still stuck in the basement working. So I'm guessing that he's kind of taking a break and popping upstairs for a minute and is interrupted by the ringing phone, I guess, right?
I guess so, yeah. And I mean, the only real thing I have to say about this segment of the minute is I know you are not allowed to know anything that happens after this minute is over. But I know other guests have certainly made comments, so I'll keep that tradition.
Sure.
Considering what we're going to see happens in tomorrow's minute, I watched this part a bunch of times to see if there was any way of seeing the person that is also in the room with Tony right now that we don't know yet. Because, like, the first second of tomorrow's minute, we're going to see that person. And it's
right.
So well hidden that it's incredible that the way that the minutes, were chopped up as you were cutting the movie up, because this minute ends and you don't know, there's no inkling, but you start the next minute and it's immediately there. I don't see a shadow or anything like that.
It's very deliberately put together. I love the way that we get that shot when he's looking at the phone and answering it. His face, his head we're close on him, and he is completely on the left side of frame. Like practically you're hardly getting any space between him and the edge of frame, which is a very strange way to frame a character, unless there is something that's about to happen, which I guess we'll have to wait till tomorrow to find out. But it is interesting though, and this is definitely going to be something to talk about tomorrow, because this room is a big curve and it's all windows. Mm-hmm. And then on the left, we don't see it so much in this minute, but we've seen it before. Just off screen left is a fireplace, and then past the fireplace are a few steps that go up to the area where his piano was before he fell through it. And to the right, the wall continues for a little bit before there's another hallway. And I've never been able to tell in this room if any of these windows are like a sliding glass door, or not a sliding glass door, but a door that would open to that balcony outside the window. But I don't think any of them are. So I think it's just this big old panel of windows and this curved couch. And it makes me think there's really only one place where somebody could be. I guess we can speculate more on that tomorrow. It's such a funny setup that they have here. But we'll talk about that tomorrow, I guess. I had a few other notes in this scene today. One, I know we've seen this room before, but for whatever reason, I don't know why it really struck me as I was looking at this wide shot here of the tree table that he has, like that polished piece of tree.
Yeah.
And I was like, it has to be, I'm assuming, a sequoia because it's so stinking big. And I don't know why it struck me as kind of such an interesting table in this particular shot. Yeah.
You know what it's reminding me of? I live in New York, and the Museum of Natural History, there's this gigantic section of a tree from like 1,500 years ago that they have up on a wall that they've had since I was even a little kid there. And it's reminding me of that. You know what? He bought a Jackson Pollock earlier in the movie just because, to stick it in storage, right? So he bought a giant table that's made out of a tree just because. Just because, exactly. Regardless, it looks cool. I love the look of that table. Yeah. I had a question here. Why, at this moment, does Pepper decide, I'm going to call him on the landline? I know we've established that this phone is sitting in this on this table and in this area. We've seen it sitting here when Pepper was working up here watching Jim Cramer. But I don't know. I'm assuming, this is the era of cell phones. I'm assuming Tony has one.
I thought it was strange that she calls the landline. But I mean, we've never established that he has a cell. Maybe he's just one of those guys who doesn't carry anything like that around, and so she's just calling him on this one.
I'm gonna come up with two possible no prize explanations for that.
Okay.
One of them would be playing off what you just said, that maybe he just has a phone like literally every 50 feet in the house, so he doesn't need a cell phone because there's always one within reach. Or he does have his cell phone, but he accidentally left it down in the garage, and he came upstairs. She called the cell phone, he didn't answer. So she's trying the house phone. That's
entirely possible. I have a little bit of an answer for this, but not for this minute. We'll chat more about that. But it is a weird thing. I don't really get. It just doesn't make a ton of sense. And I actually like your idea that he probably has phones all over the place. It's lucky, I guess, for a certain somebody that this is the one that he goes toward.
I mean, I've been in some very rich people's houses in the past of my life, and I will say there are phones in every room, including bathrooms. So, it's definitely possible.
Well, let's. I guess we'll go with that for now. That this is just one of those, and he happens to be going to the one on the couch. The other question that I had is we do see when he picks up the phone, the display, the lovely color display that the VTech phone has, showing a picture of Pepper, and it has her name on it as well, Pepper Potts Calling. It did make me wonder, does he ever call her by her real name, or is Pepper pretty much the perma name for her now? Because Virginia is actually her name, and I assuming that she's kind of dropped that, and Pepper is almost like become her official name, as opposed to just a nickname.
Yeah, I mean, I know in the comics she was Pepper. Nobody called her Virginia. I mean, I'm assuming that. Would that be popping up? Well, I guess it depends on where the name is coming from. Is it coming from her phone sending out what her name is, or is it coming from him entering into the phone Pepper? If what I just said made any sense.
Well, no, I get it. Yeah, and I guess that's a question. I don't know, like this old VTech technology from 2008. Is this something that he had to program in so that it would pop up when that particular phone number called, or is it pulling that from her number when she calls?
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. But either way, it did make me. It's kind of an inane question, I guess, because in the world of comics, I mean, Pepper Potts is pretty much her name. Virginia, I think, was only ever used in that pinup that they actually did for her. And then, okay, so here's another question I have, and this is going to be something that we started speculating when she meets Agent Coulson and when she's looking on Tony's computer. When she's on his computer, we see the time signature up in the corner of the computer. It says it's 13:46 p.m. So we know that it's 1:46 in the afternoon, and that's when Stain interrupts her. So it's about 2 o'clock when she disappears with Agent Coulson, and they're heading off to his office is basically what we've said. Based on the darkness outside of the windows here, it's pretty twilight. I mean, you can see a little bit of the city, not much. I don't know if I'd call it complete night. I think it's probably just one of the later twilight bits. The Jim Cramer episode, when Pepper's watching that was May 4th, 2008. We saw that stamp on the show. So assuming that we're within a couple-month window from when that happened, that means the sun is setting somewhere in Malibu between 7:41 and 8:10 p.m., and then twilight runs about an hour. So she's calling him around 8 or 9 o'clock at night. What was she doing with Agent Coulson? Like, what kind of debriefing was this? I would think that she would say, this is what I just discovered. Let's make a beeline for the house and get Tony. This is such a strange plot hole, I guess, that just, it's frustrating for me. Is it something that you caught, or it bugs you at all, or am I making a big deal of it?
Well, listen, we wouldn't be minute by minute, movie by minute people right. If we didn't make a big deal of it. I did not notice it, but yeah, it is strange because the whole movie has been her blowing off Coulson. So why would she suddenly do the debriefing with her now when she's got this information? I mean, the second he took the newspaper from her and said, I want to do the puzzle and walked away, I mean, she should have been on the phone with him immediately.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a continuity error.
Yeah, it's something that I guess maybe they were trying to speed through the scenes to get it to be night, and they were trying to find a way to we've got these scenes, they're going to be taking place at night. The big fight on the highway. Maybe it's just one of those things where they're like, this is going to be easier for us to do if it's dark rather than having these guys fighting in traffic during the day. I don't know what the logic is, but it certainly is one of those movie time jumps that kind of shifts, and when you start paying attention to it, you're like, oh, it's a little long. All of a sudden, we're going for about 6 or 7 hours before she actually reaches back out to Tony.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think I can come up with an attempt at a no prize explanation for this one.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. It is a tricky one. Well, I don't have anything else for this minute. We've got a lot to talk about tomorrow. Do you have any last thoughts?
Not for this minute.
All right. Well, Eric, thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, I'm sure. Been looking forward to it. Like I said, I'm a big fan, loyal listener of the show.
Well, we certainly appreciate it. Oh, would you like to tell everybody where they can find you and learn more about you and your shows?
Sure. My current Movies by Minute podcast is Escape from New York. We have a fan group on Facebook, Brains Library, the Escape from New York Minute Hangout. We're on Twitter, NY Minute Pod. You can find us anywhere that you get your podcasts, and or you can go to growlermedia.com, and we're on there. This is my second Movies by Minute podcast. I completed also Flash Gordon Minute, and that's also available on Growler Media. That's also anywhere that you get your podcasts. And I do still check the Facebook group for that. If you're first finding out about that one and you're binging it, Flash Gordon Minute Listeners Vortex on Facebook.
The Listeners Vortex. I love it. All right, everybody. Well, that is it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the show for free at marvelmovieminute.com. Join us over in our Discord chat room and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Next Reel. And if you like what we do and you want to support us and get some cool stuff, become a patron over at thenextreel.com/Patreon. Until next time, true believers.